Do you know someone who's been diagnosed with cancer and they get whisked away? This is the only way that you can treat cancer, and it's usually through chemotherapy, radiation, or surgery. But what if there's another way? What if there is, and of course you've heard me talk about this, a natural way to towards health, even cancer, to heal your body? Well, there is a product that that helps with the natural treatment of cancer. Because what we've discovered is that people who have cancer pretty much have a deficiency in their body, but the deficiency may be different than what we're being told it is. So I'm excited. I've got reacquainted when we went to the Annie Appleseed conference, project conference, and the Best Answers for Cancer. I got reacquainted with an old friend of mine, Al Sanchez. And oh boy, we did a class with Dr. James Forsyth and Charles Majors, and it was just a wonderful example of how we can learn new truths and it could be life-changing. So today, Al Sanchez is back. He's the owner of Poly-MVA. This is a supplement that could be taken at any time, but we're going to learn a little bit more about it with Al.
And when you need a friend, you can count on me. I'll be right here waiting for you.
Hi, my name is Lillian McDermott, and I am a certified life coach and the host of the Lillian McDermott Radio Show Classroom. If this is the first time you're tuning in, please know I've been waiting for you. This is a safe place where you can go when you need a friend. It is my commitment to provide natural ways to heal, and it is my mission to make awareness, responsibility, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope you, my listening, as well as my viewing friend, will feel empowered to embrace a new truth and live the life of your dreams. Now, as I said before, Al Sanchez has been someone that I've known for a long time. And since COVID, I hadn't seen him because there weren't a lot of these events that I could go to. But guess what? We got to see each other again, and I am so excited that he's here. And since it is our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge, I am grateful that Al Sanchez is here to do just that. Welcome, Al. Welcome back to the classroom.
Glad to be back, Lily. Thanks for having me.
You know, the last time we were on the radio and we didn't even see each
That's right.
other. So now we
That's
get
right.
to see each other, we can learn from each other and grow together. So share a little bit about Poly-MVA and how you got involved in it.
Wow. How far do you want to go back?
I'll go back to a very beginning, but not as far back as Jay Forsyth went.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, he took. Yeah, he's good at telling you the whole story.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's fairly simple story. A difficult one at times because my mother and my older sister passed away of cancer. So that's why I sit here before you. My father got interested in realizing that there were other things that could have been done that he wasn't told about. And so that he discovered and started looking for different things. From that, he met individuals like Dr. James Forsyth, like Dr. Majors, all these other people. I mean, hundreds, if not thousands, of people over the years. So when my older sister Tina passed away, that's what really involved me in it because I was only 3 years old when my mother passed away. So, um, yes, it impacted my life greatly, but as far as what I was going to do with myself when I got older, I had no idea. But Tina passes away. Um, that was really difficult because she was the oldest and she was a lot like my mom at a certain level. And so with that, well, what do? You're open to something new, and once you get open to something new, it's like the light's been turned on, and what do you do with that? So it was exciting, scary, new, everything. Glad my um, dad was doing what he was doing and able to keep that scenario going. So from there, it was exciting to now be involved with what is now Poly-MVA and what he started. So with that, I was able to um, move forward with and learning about integrative cancer care, learning about different treatments, learning about how this all works and what you can do with that. And so that's the short story of it in a way. But it's allowed me to really educate myself in regards to what do you do when you get a diagnosis of anything matter? So
Yeah.
cancer can be one thing that you get diagnosed with, but however, that's really not the issue. It's more so about how the things you can do with that, and that's where Poly really plays its role with um, what Dr. Forsyth had explained many years ago, and others have taken up that baton about integrative medicine and reallocating those resources so that your body can heal. So all those things you just mentioned about recovery, restoration, yeah, we need a friend that can help to do that. And there are other individuals out there that do those types of things that help with what's the best nutrition, what's the best type of therapies you should do, how you should do them, when you should do them. All those things play a big role into what you do with that therapy itself. And then you can actually heal and recover, as you just talked about.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and I remember the first time, I just had a flashback. The first time I actually met you, I was in Dr. Jason, I'm trying to remember his last name. He was doing a television show in California, and I was flown in, and you were the person in front of me, and I was listening from everybody that Dr. Jason was talking to. And so I was taking notes, and I remember before you left, I said, I really would love to talk to you about coming on my show. Do you remember that? And then the day before you came on, this was back in 2015,
Wow.
I said to you, hey, I know you like your product, but do you have any doctors that are using your product? And you said, yes, I can. And you got me Dr. Forsyth, and I couldn't believe how he blew me away. Stage 4 cancers, with a recovery rate of 70% at the time. I could not, I mean, I couldn't grasp it. This is how huge this was. And I'm so glad that you introduced me to him, because we've done quite a bit of classes together or shows way back then. You can find them if on Facebook and YouTube if they haven't been erased. So with that in mind, let's talk about what Poly-MVA is. What is in it? Because what was your father's background that he was able to do some research? So was he a chemist? Did he have a medical background?
Well, so ironically, my father he became a researcher because of the situation that happened to my mother.
Mhm.
And with that, previously that he was a school principal.
Mhm.
That's what he did, but highly intelligent. If I had to rate my father on the scale, he was a genius when it came to, he could it was like, if you know a lot about Abraham Lincoln, I think they call it a didactic, where you can literally self-educate yourself with just reading and researching and talking.
Mhm.
You can absorb so much out of it.
Yeah.
And so again, if I can't imagine how it would have been for my father if, my mother, she was 34 years old when she was diagnosed. She passed away at 36. He has 4 kids. That changes your life, and
Yeah.
it drastically changed his, and of course it changed mine. I didn't know how much it would be, but it changes that. And so from that perspective, he went and researched. Then there was a situation with my older sister Linda, that's close to me, where she had become ill and this, that, the other, and was going through conventional. They had no answers, and my father found the solution with just doing research in the medical library there at the hospital. So
Mhm.
it taught him that there's other things, and then that just kept exposing him. And then as a school principal, for those of us that remember the AIDS epidemic back in the 1980s, not only the political but also the medical
Mhm. Yeah.
tension that was created because of that.
Mhm.
And then these individuals were left to figure things out for themselves. So this is where, I don't know, from a little bit of history for everybody who wants to know, this is where this truly integrative alternative medicine came from, was this group of individuals that had nothing that they could do, had to try anything under the sun to do so. And look what they did. They changed the culture. They changed what was accepted. And then all the other various communities, whether it's the oncology community, the autoimmune community, they all took from this and said, hey, why don't we try this? And so like most things, it became trial and error. How do we all learn? Basically, you can research stuff in the lab all you want, but not until you do trial and error with these things and say, hey, did this work or did this not work? And then you have doctors like Dr. Forsyth that do hundreds of patients that way and say, hey, this is the recipe for success. So to be a part of that, I'm like honored beyond belief. I got to grow up with that. I got to physically. I get to be there with Dr. Forsyth in his office and all the other, Dr. Anderson, Dr. Winkler, Dr. Schreck, hundreds of doctors that I got to go, and this is what I get to do. So when you talk about what I get to be excited about, I get to learn from those on the front line, as well as those that are truly making a difference, truly game changers, pioneers in this arena. They really are. And I'm learning that now that I'm older. Here I am 24 years later, 25 years later from this. And these individuals are now retiring, and they're out and say, who's going to carry that baton? Who's going to push this forward to say, at the end of the day, like you said at the beginning of the show, how are you helping somebody? How are we bringing the better good to any situation or any one person at any one time to be able to help another person? That's it. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
And when you come to the table with that kind of desire and an open heart to do so, man, the universe is powerful from that perspective. So
Yeah.
that's what I get to do and be a part of. And thank you for allowing me this opportunity to share that. But that's kind of how it all started, to be honest. And then Poly just fit in the story of meeting Dr. Garnett, who discovered and created it. That's another 2-hour show in itself.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you something. You said that your father started doing research after your mom passed away. How
Correct.
soon after did your sister pass away, and did Poly exist in its form that it is
Yeah.
today?
So no, it did not. So my mother passed away in July 20th of 1972. Tina passed away of January 20th of 2000. So we're talking close to 30 years later, right?
Wow.
So big difference. And again, so going back to that story that I started on about the AIDS, because as a school principal, circumstances out of your control, some of the families of his schools are hit by that AIDS crisis, and he gets front row seat to support and help, because my dad was a great principal, and here these children are suffering, and he knew and he didn't have he had support, fortunately, from other aunts and uncles and grandparents, but some of these families do not. And if they lose a mother or a father, it significantly changes their trajectory to sometimes tragic consequences. So my dad naturally wants to help people. That's the kind of guy he was. So that exposed him to this alternative world of medicine. And in his mind, knowing cancer is close to his heart because of what it was, he immediately, it was an easy slide down that road. And so that's where he went. And then he's doing this unbeknownst to me. I mean, I knew it, but again, dad's off doing dad's thing. I don't know. I'm in my 20s and teenagers. I don't know what dad's doing. And dad's being dad. Okay. But then Tina passes away, and now I'm like, okay, what do we got here? What's going
Because
on?
she was like your mom. She was like your mom. She took care of
Yeah.
you, and she
Yeah.
loved you. And
yeah. Unbelievably so. She was the matriarch. She was the oldest.
yeah.
So I never really experienced my mother's death, but I experienced my sister's death. But I also then re-experienced my mother's death. So that was life-changing for me.
Yeah.
And then my life changes, and then I come down, and here I sit 20 plus years later, having been able to experience that and so much more that I could share.
Yeah.
And it's awesome, because now being able to bring Poly to the table for people like yourselves and what you saw and how we met and at the radio show there in California, it just makes, you're helping people one person at a time. And if you have something like a product like Poly, which is so different than those, it's in the realm of dietary supplements, but you look at vitamin C, you look at vitamin D, hey, they're wonderful, they're powerful. Poly is a very unique complex that we can talk about in a little bit, or whenever you're ready, that talks about, it takes it to a whole new level. So it allows the body this level of healing and recovery and restoration that is just pretty phenomenal.
Yeah.
And it starts in the cells and how those cells work and how they communicate, and the better they work together. It's just like a symphony that really comes together to help people recover, because that's what health is, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, interestingly enough, when we first met, I was very skeptical of the product. I still am. I think everybody should be skeptical of any product, because formularies change and things happen in life. But I remember the first time, I mean, I grilled you. I was like, okay, get me a doctor that do this. And this time I'm like, no, I really want people to get to know you. And I want people to understand what Poly-MVA is. So let's get started on Poly-MVA, because, yeah. So what is Poly-MVA, and what is different about it than any other supplement?
So Poly-MVA is a liquid dietary supplement that has a very unique, it's not just the ingredients, but it's the way the ingredients are put together. So we call that lipoic acid mineral complex. And what that does is it allows for our cells to better make and support the energy production that's necessary for their job to do. So regardless of if it's a liver cell or a heart cell or a skin cell, or it doesn't matter. All cells from a biological perspective work roughly the same way. They need energy to get their job done, as Dr. Antonovich always likes to share. Because without that, then they become dysfunctional. And then this is where we have breakdowns and changes in our health. We see, I think aging is probably the best way to describe the changes that happen, right? I mean, when you're younger, you can kind of do all kinds of things, eat all kinds of things, and it doesn't really seem to affect you. But you try and do that when you're in your 50s and 60s, guess what? Big difference. So I could always say that before, but now that I'm in my 50s, believe me, I feel it incredibly different, and that's okay. That's just part of it. But it's very fundamental that our aging is directly related to the energetics of our cells. Those energetics come from the mitochondria. Those mitochondria are what keep us healthy and well. So when you take care of those, when you target those, and you do it with a product like Poly-MVA, then the lipoic acid mineral complex, the B2, the B12, the formylmethionine, the molybdenum, it isn't just the ingredients, it's the recipe that Dr. Arnett created, because he didn't put this together saying, hey, let me put this together. I think I have an idea for a cool product. And then, hey, where can I use it? No, he actually said, hey, what's missing and dysfunctional when cells' energetics are gone awry or broke down or changed or something like that? Oh, this is the pathway. Okay. How do you target that pathway? Oh, that pathway needs, guess what? B1 needs alpha lipoic acid. It plays B2. It has B12. So now it's putting together the tool. Well, that's what we like to call poly, so that it can target that pathway very specifically for those energetics. So, and that's far different than just taking a multivitamin. Okay, that's great. You have a multivitamin. It has lots of ingredients that our bodies need, but do you need 500 milligrams of vitamin C, or do you need 2,000 milligrams of vitamin C? I don't know. That's going to be changing upon the different scenarios of your life, your age, what your diet is, what you can absorb. So it's really fundamentally different, because it doesn't exist anywhere else except in that product, in that bottle. You can take all the individual ingredients you want, but it's not the same.
Okay, so the principle here that I'm trying to connect is, when people have cancer, is there an across the board deficiency in the body, like B1, B2, B12? I mean, what is the connection to all the lipoic acid and alpha lipoic acid and all this? What is the connection to cancer? And can people that don't have cancer take it for prevention?
Well, this is the great thing about nutritional supplements, as well as dietary supplements, and as well as your food and your diet. I think that's the easy, because that's the category this lands in. The treatment of a disease is regulated for drugs, period, end of story. You don't take vitamin C to treat your disease. You don't take Poly-MVA to treat your disease. You take drugs to treat disease. You take nutritional supplements that target your body, and your body wants to be in a place called homeostasis. If it's too high or low this way, it wants to balance itself. It's always trying to do this on a constant level, and the better it can stay in the middle and stop these high or low ranges, then the better it can survive itself and take care of itself. So that's the first thing. The diagnosis of a disease is a downstream event. It's not what Poly does. It's not what any of these nutritional supplements do. Vitamin C is used across most all cells of your body. Same with vitamin D. Well, guess what? The energetics, the mitochondria, the ATP production that I just talked about is fundamental to all cells of the body as well. So from that perspective, that's what we're targeting. Let the doctors deal with the disease. We don't touch that area. And that's why nutritional supplements aren't marketed that way. And if they are, then they're not supposed to be. right? There are guidelines as to what dietary supplements are. So you're not here to diagnose, treat, or prevent disease. No, that's all. That's medicine in a very small perspective versus integrative medicine or sometimes integrative nutritionals and things. No, that just took in, and now we're looking at the whole person. We're looking at the whole body. We're not looking at this one little abnormal cell. Now, having said that, when cells become dysfunctional, right, they're not working right for whatever reason. So you want to talk a cancer cell and its dysfunction. You want to talk about a cardiovascular cell and its dysfunction. You want to talk about an immune system cell and its dysfunction. Okay. But at the end of the day, it comes down to mitochondria. They play such a role, not 10%. If I had to put a number on it, mitochondria play like an 80% role in the survival, the mechanism, how a cell's going to work. It's huge, Lily.
Wow.
It's absolutely, it's off the charts. And if you really dive into the research, you will see that everybody's talking about it now, because now they realized they missed the boat. So this is where Poly is so different, because Dr. Garnett, he found that boat 30 plus years. And Poly, as you mentioned, you grilled me on it and want to know what this was. And the honest to God truth, and I can sit here as I do today. Poly is Poly as it was 30 years ago, as it was 25 years ago, as it was 15 years, 5 years, as it is today. Because we don't got to change and sell you or try and market this thing as some, special sauce from, the jungles of wherever we mixed with some, that's all BS in my book. I've been around way too long, and I'm sure many of us have seen a product come and a product go. But Poly is just Poly, doing what Poly does, taking care of the mitochondria, supporting that mechanism, which in turn now supports the person. End of story.
In the story. And I tell you what, as you're telling that, I had a visual of myself inhaling Poly-MVA while we were at the event. I kept sneezing and wheezing in the conference room. I don't know what it was. And I heard other people sneezing and wheezing. And I came to you and I'm like, oh, there's something in there that's causing me an allergic reaction. It could be someone had major cats, maybe the cat lady was in there, or somebody with dogs. I had no idea. And so I came to you and you said, well, would you like to inhale it? And I'm like, what? You want to put it in your eyes? What? So you say that things are the same, Poly-MVA then than it is today, but I have a feeling that it's kind of evolved to multiple uses or multiple reasons to use it. How did you let me inhale it? Which, by the way, I still want that little inhaler that you have.
That's the physicians. That's where they get to go and do these types of things. From the Poly perspective, it's real simple. It's a liquid, it's a dietary supplement. What doctors do and how they do things in their world or things. That's why I was glad that you got to experience the doctors that were there, and Dr. Danny, I believe it was, and the other doctors, because that's their field. That's why they do medicine. That's why they do these applications to those types of things. The dietary supplements are just that. They're for the supplementation. What the doctors can do with that as a tool, that's up for the doctors to determine on how best and where to use it and why. That's what doctors do, right? They see something as being either dysfunctional or it needs support or whatever it might be, then great. This is where nutrition is simpler. But again, you can't compare a nutritional supplement to what any drug, whether it's Tylenol or some heart medication or some oncology. That's a medication, works completely different, with wonderful effects, right? I mean, look at what modern medicine has done to help and support and protect and save a lot of people. But take diabetes, for example. If you change your nutrition, if you change your diet, you will drastically change a diabetic scenario.
Yes.
And I know lots of people that have just changed their diabetes from changing their diet. That was simple enough. Others that added certain medications along with other supplements or vice versa. That's where you're really getting, and hopefully what we're developing are these physicians that understand the best of both worlds. Let's not ignore what modern medicine can do, but let's also not ignore how powerful the body is in doing what it does. And let's find a better balance between that. That's a whole new approach in general health and well-being and longevity. But when you do it, look at those people and look at how they're surviving, look at how they're thriving, and look how much longer they're living. That's awesome.
So what I'm hearing you say is that the doctors, because I remember when I introduced you to Dr. Henning, and he was asking you questions. He was like grilling you, and you replied to him, and he was like, oh, because it was like it made sense to him once you started putting it in the way that he was asking, and he would say, well, this is how it works that way, and this is how it works that way, and I was very impressed. I had no idea what you guys were talking about, but the fact that I have high respect for Dr. Saupe and you, it was really nice to see that technical conversation happening where you were responding to someone who knows the mechanism of cancer. So with that in mind, I'm hearing you say that these doctors are venturing off of just the supplement, appeal to it, and using it with what? Are they using it alongside traditional chemotherapy or a small dose chemotherapy, which is a more a manageable dose, or are they using it as a standalone product, or are they working with other products to make it better?
Generally it's like any type of nutritional support, it isn't just one side of it. The nice thing with something like poly is it knows it's going to target the metabolic side. So when it comes to metabolism, when it comes to mitochondria,
okay,
that's what it is. But if they need some specific cardiovascular support, okay, maybe that's L-carnitine, maybe that's D-ribose, maybe that's a bigger dose of some CoQ10. If they're looking at the liver, if they're looking at the kidneys, okay, then they're going to be targeting that. So it becomes, I think about it as since my background is I love tinkering and mechanics and engineering, it's not other tools in your toolbox. Or if you're a chef in the kitchen, you got your knives and forks, and right, but then you have your special tools that allow you to create a very special recipe under very specific conditions. That's all this really is for these physicians. They have unique tools that they can then apply in different scenarios based upon what they're trying to bake in the kitchen for this particular person. Hey, they have an allergy to chocolate chips. Well, guess what? We're going to make them peanut butter chips. Okay. Well, we don't want we want macarons. Okay. Well, we don't want macarons. It's the same. It really is. It's fundamentally no different. You're trying to get that person the right ingredients they need to support their nutrition. That's hugely important. It's really not more complicated than that. This isn't rocket science, but it is basic biology.
I have a client. I don't mean to, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. I have a client that has stage 4 cancer, and it's metastasized. But they're hanging on. They're hanging on.
Okay.
Would this be something that someone can purchase over the counter? Like I can purchase it myself, or does a doctor need to order this for them? Or can they just use it as a supplement? So it's a supplement.
It's just a supplement. It's a dietary supplement that they can use to support themselves from that nutritional perspective. And again, this is where and why it's critical that they work with a doctor, because if anybody is stage 4 anything, stage 4 just means that the cancer has metastasized. In other words, it's moving in other places, which now becomes even more serious than when it's isolated in just one little place. So yeah, that needs to be under the care of a doctor. I mean, this is really serious. So don't be thinking that some just drinking 5 gallons of tea is all you're going to need to do to take care of this. 5 gallons of tea is probably pretty good and healthy and something we should all be doing. However, you need to be working with a physician and then advance. That's
5 gallons of tea. I don't know. Where are you from? Texas?
I'm joking if you're familiar with like EC green tea, which is ECG. I can never
Asiatic tea.
Asiatic tea.
Okay,
because it's very powerful. It's very powerful of the polyphenol that is in the tea.
Yeah.
But however, you're relying on that. No, that's a gamble I'm not willing to take. But
yeah, well, we know that disease is like it's a polyfacet look at it. It's a spirit, mind, and body. And a lot of people want to, I just recently interviewed Dr. Bruce Lipton, and he always makes me so aware that the majority of our health, it comes from our mindset. It's our epigenetics that is triggered by our environment, the way we think, the way we act, of course, what we eat. But
Mhm.
it's so important that we get that mindset. But if you think about it, if 5%, let's say 5% is physiological and 95% is emotional and has something to do with trauma, we spend most of our time trying to fix the 5%
Mhm. Right.
and we
No,
neglect the other side. So yeah.
yeah, that is very true. And you mentioned a term called epigenetics.
Hmm.
So for those of you out there that may not know what epigenetics is so you pretty much know what your genetics are. Your genetics
Hmm.
are your genes, right?
Hmm.
Given to you at conception from your parents, and that's just what it is. Can't change it. Can't now. The expression of those genes, that's what we call epigenetics, and that's environmental. In other words, where you live, what you eat, how much exercise you do or don't do,
Hmm.
how much stress you do or don't have,
Hmm.
the air you breathe, the water you drink, the dirt you walk on, all plays a role in the expression of those genes. It's a pretty fascinating area. It's something that's only really come to light in maybe the past 30 years. They've talked about it before that to a certain degree, but the DNA theory was really locked in for a long time that says, oh yeah, if you have a genetic disposition to heart disease, that's just going to happen. Not necessarily. We found out now, especially if you ever look at what's called the twin studies. In other words, identical twins that were raised in different environments. Guess what? Different things happened. So it wasn't guaranteed just to their genes. And that number has probably grown from probably 5% to 10% to now somewhere between almost maybe close to 50%, depending upon how polluted the environment might be, how bad of a lifestyle. I mean, look at smokers. Look at diet. Look at those things will affect your expression of your genes
Yeah.
far more powerfully than what your genes are. So um, that's where health and what our cells are trying to do, and primarily where the energetics, right? It requires more energy if we're really trying to take care of the situation. If this situation is way down low at 10%, to bring it back to 50%, that's going to take 40% more energy.
Hmm. Hmm.
But what if it's only at 30%? Well, then it's only going to take 20%. What
Hmm.
if it's only at 42? And as we age, that's what happens,
Hmm.
that discrepancy. So look what happens. Like when we were younger, you had more energy and you know what to do with. And then as we're older, what happens? That declines rather quickly. So uh, it's both. And now we understand that. So research doesn't have the answer specifically. We simply know it's now a player in the game. And the better we take care of ourselves, the better we can protect our environment and have a healthier environment, the better likelihood that uh, we're going to survive, be healthier, and live longer. It's really that simple, really. I wish I could tell you it's not, but it really is. At least in my world, it is.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so let me ask you, is there any contraindication? Is there any reason someone should not take it? Because you said you can take this as a supplement,
Mhm.
and does it help with prevention? And what I got out of you is it helps with your mitochondria, and that is crucial, right? Am I hearing you right?
You are. From there, again, that's what good, healthy diet and lifestyle that we just got done talking about. Now,
Mhm.
the better you protect yourself, depending upon your diet and lifestyle and everything else, then the healthier we're going to be. That's the great thing about nutritional supplements and nutritional support.
Mhm.
You're targeting these things very specifically. You're maintaining them. Doesn't mean that something's not going to go wrong. I mean, ultimately, we're all going to get older and decline. That's just, we can't affect that at any level. Actually, no, sir. We can't change that end out result. We can affect how when that happens. And if you look
Okay.
at people as again, depending on the age group that you know and aware of, look at some of these people now. They just wanted to live until their hundreds. Now they're thriving into their late 90s. They're still active.
Mhm.
Oh, running, jogging, playing tennis, whatever their hobby might be, pickleball,
Yeah.
um, because we now understand it, and you can see the difference in their peer group from those that are thriving and those that are just surviving, and then those that are just declining. So
Mhm.
this is a relatively new field from that perspective, but what Poly's doing is it's targeting that mitochondrial space. That's what it does. That's what we love about it.
So is there any contraindication? Is there any,
So,
any demographics, any diagnosis or anything that would keep someone from taking poly, like a person with dementia, for
um,
example?
well, again, so when you're the one thing, the only contraindication is taking additional alpha lipoic acid because poly is a lipoic acid based. That by adding more ALA, you're going to be competing with the poly molecule versus the space. So that's the only thing
Okay.
the doctor going to hit advised ever doing. If for some reason someone is doing what's called maybe they're targeting metabolics to stop metabolics. Then if you're going to block that, there's some things out there that can actually, they're called, I believe they're glycobenzaldehydes. And they take a different route with certain cells. If that's the case, then you just have to learn when you're doing what and when you're doing something else. And again, this is the space of the physicians and the practitioners and the professionals that understand this. Because if you do have a diagnosis of anything, you need to be working with someone who really understands that, right? Just trying to mitigate it on yourself. I mean, you can self-educate yourself, no doubt about that. But we're not all plumbers, we're not all electricians, we're not all handy, carpenters. There's some people that are specialized in their field. Trust them to do it because yeah, you maybe wanted to save $1, but it's going to take you 30 days longer than had you just spent somebody else to do it. So health it's a little more critical depending upon that person and what they need, but nonetheless, yeah, plenty of wonderful individuals out there, such as yourself and other doctors that that are willing to share their information. But ultimately, if you need a physician, then go see a physician who understands this. So you can interview, you don't have to sign up with your own first physician. Interview the physicians, find out what they know, what they don't know, what they've experienced, okay, just like you would interview somebody to be a plumber or to fix your car or whatever. There are better ones out in any industry. We're all human beings. Just because we have a title of MD or whatever it might be behind our name doesn't necessitate guarantee anything.
Correct. It's
So
absolutely true. That is absolutely
yeah.
true. And this is what I love about this product is, you can take it as a supplement or you can take it
Mhm.
in conjunction with something else, with a
Right.
doctor. And
Mhm.
usually when you go to the Poly-MVA website, does it show other doctors in the area that are using Poly-MVA?
We had a doctor's directory some time ago. Sadly, it's become a lot more difficult because of the changes in so many different things. Um, so, and now, early on we had that because it was very few doctors that were out there. Now there's a lot more physicians that work with that. But sadly, trying to just keep up with what doctors do and change, and they're moving from one place to another, and their information's updated. So, yeah, there are the specialized clinics and locations like a Dr. Forsyth when he was doing his research, when he was really out there. I mean, now he's in his 80s, so not doing nearly as much as he was in travel and conferences and sharing the stuff.
Mhm.
And rightly so. He changed the industry. He changed a lot of
Yeah.
ways that are being practiced, and that's awesome. And so now
Yeah.
it's time for this next generation. So that's kind of what I alluded to in our conversations, where
Mhm.
at a certain level it feels like this is being started over again, because now it's time for the next generation to take place.
Yeah.
Because all those individuals, including my father, they've passed away or they're retired or whatever they've done. And so yep, time for the new blood to pick up the new torch and carry it on their best way and hopefully keep things moving forward.
Yeah, yeah. And that's what I want to kind of shift gears here to let you know that all of you have an opportunity. I'm going to have a link below where
Okay.
in the description where you can click on and get between 5 and 10% off Poly-MVA. I have tried Poly-MVA, and after I inhaled the Poly-MVA, I went back and I did not sneeze or cough once. So it did something for me. I don't know what, but it did something for me where it made me stronger and it built my immune system because I did not, and it was interesting because I could not stop sneezing. And after this happened, I brought everybody. I was like, "Hey, Al, have I introduced you to Dr. Henning? I've introduced you to, reintroduced you to Dr. Jennifer Grameth, all these people that I brought to his booth. I even got a poly shot. So there's so many different ways that you can administer poly, but as a supplement, which is what we're talking about today, it can be taken by anyone that would like to work on their mitochondria. And so if you're interested, go to whenyouneedafriend.com And while you're there, please subscribe, like, and follow me on all social media. If you want to learn more about Poly-MVA, you can click the link in the description that will give you a percentage off, and that way you can start your journey. Poly-MVA is not cheap, but it's not that over expensive, but it does work. It smells like the vitamins my mom used to give me when
Yes.
I was a little kid. And
Right.
so that's what it smells like, and it's what it tastes like. So while you're at when you need a friend.com, check out my sponsors, support them the way that they've supported the classroom. And also check out my Shop Now bag. You'll find the Poly logo in there. Click on it and you can save there, or you can just follow the link in the description below. There's so many different ways that you can save money in the classroom. Then last but not least, you can become an enrolled student in the classroom. And of course, keep in mind, we have all sorts of workshops, do-it-yourself workshops that you can take advantage of and enjoy with the mindset, the part of the mindset that is so crucial, that epigenetics, the way we look at things, like Max Planck said, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So if you want to become an enrolled student in the classroom, whether it's $1 or $1,000 a month or a one-time donation, it doesn't matter what it is. Heck, just sharing this video with everybody you know, with somebody who has cancer that might need this extra boost, will be a way that you're helping the classroom grow. So check out the different ways that you can help in the classroom, whether it's your time, your talent, your treasure. Everything is welcome. And so also check out all the different workshops that we do so that you can start learning about a natural way to heal the body. So today we have Al Sanchez. He's the owner of Poly-MVA. I met him back in 2015 when I was flown to California to be on a television show. He was there, got to know him, got to know his product, got to know the doctors that use this product. And let me tell you, I've been impressed. So I was really excited to reconnect with Al, because we used to see each other all the time, didn't we? We'd go at all these events, and you were there, I was there. I don't know, we haven't even discussed it, but next year, the I Am the Solution Natural Health Summit is going to be focused on cancer and autoimmune disease. So I'm looking for speakers, and I'm hoping that Poly-MVA will be a vendor speaker in the event, because it's going to be, we just had the I Am the Solution Natural Health Summit, and it was amazing. It really was amazing. And all the parts came together just beautifully to educate and empower each attendee, like we do here in the classroom, empower you to know that your body was created to heal naturally. The Garden of Eden didn't have a lot of pills. It didn't have any pills. Everything was created it was given to us, that was created to heal our body. Herbs and people made the food that was there, all the things that we were given to us. So I'm just so grateful, Al, that perhaps maybe, I mean, I'm putting on a spot here, but maybe we can work things out where you can be a speaker at the event, because Poly-MVA, I think, is a part of the healing process.
Love to, and thank you. Look forward to it.
Yeah, I'm gonna time it so when you're in Florida, you can come to me afterwards, or come to
Okay.
me first and then stay in Florida and go down to the other Annie Appleseed and Best Answers for Cancer. So maybe you
Perfect.
can do
Perfect.
both. Yes, we'll make it work. We'll make it work. So
Okay.
let's talk about some of your stories that whether they're anecdotal or that doctors have shared stories with you that have impacted in the way that your passion has grown with Poly-MVA.
Wow. Well, that's pretty much at least on a weekly basis, I would say.
Mhm.
And as far as those stories, I mean, they go back to um, just seeing what my father was doing during the 90s and running around and helping these people. And this one, I don't remember her name, but there's one lady he was with, and she goes from uh, he's assisting her in just recovering and learning about these things, because he's traveling to in and out of Mexico, and he's doing all these types of things. So he's and he meets this middle-aged woman at the time, and she was in need, and he attached to her, and he helped her out and put her on Poly and kept her going with all the doctors he knew, and she goes from, you know, being almost bedridden to a wheelchair to a walker to walking, you know. And he'd always bring, I kid you not, he would bring her to like my birthday party, to family events. We're like, man, who's this lady? You know, first it's like, okay, you know, it's not like a lost puppy, but you know what I mean, the same similar situation where
Yeah.
like, yeah, what are you, this is kind of weird, Dad, what are you doing? And then you're like, oh wow. And then you hear her and you're like, that's just the kind of, you know, my dad was raised that way. That's how you, well, you just help people when you, if they're put on your doorstep, you take care of them. You don't just blow them off.
Yeah.
And so that was the first one I'll never forget. And then from there, being introduced to Gary Matson, and what he did, and he lost his wife to a brain cancer, and used Poly, saw how much energy and how much better she felt on it. So that was powerful, and he stayed with, and he eventually started working with my dad, and so he stayed with the company and Poly until he passed away during COVID. So not because of COVID, but he was in his 80s as well. So when you think of the various doctors that I've met and known, and it changed their life, it changed their way of practicing, that Poly did that when they saw the difference that it made. So I can tell you hundreds, thousands of stories daily onward.
There was a gentleman that was at the workshop that he had his own story. Can you recall his story? Yeah.
So that's Michael Mascari. He's been on Poly since 2004. So it's kind of poetic that this is his 20-year anniversary. It was, and he, now that he's moved to Florida, so he was able to come over to the conference and visit and say hello and share his story with others. Because there's one thing about Mr. Mascari, he honest to God, he has kept his records of every supplement he takes, when he takes it, how much he takes it, for 20 years.
Wow.
Tell me anybody you know that's ever done that. I've held a lot of good records, but for 20, that's what he does. But guess what? Because of that, and you look at him, and you met him, I mean, he was 70 years old. He didn't look 70 years old.
No.
So this is what I was referring to from that aging perspective, is the best way to really tell. When you take care of yourself, you don't really notice it as much as when you're in your 30s. You know, maybe you can notice it when you're in your 40s, but trust me, as soon as you get to your 50s, you're going to know. When you get to your 60s, you're really going to know. In your 70s, oh my goodness, it's right. It's going to be, so it's like, I guess the easiest way I describe that is anybody who loves classic cars. What's the appeal to a classic Mustang, or, you know, a classic truck or something? When you see it, it's, you see that car go down the road because it's one of a kind, right? You don't see that very often. That thing goes by and you're like, wow, look at the paint job. Look at, and if it's original, how much more valuable that is, both monetarily and personally.
Yeah.
So why don't we treat our bodies the same way?
I know.
Why do we not treat our bodies like we would want to treat something that's going to become worth tens of thousands of dollars? Because I believe our health is worth millions of dollars personally, right? What are you without your health, right? All our successes, all our whatever we value in life becomes very small the second our health starts becoming a problem. So I've really tried to change that mindset and really apply that. So I'm raising my children the same way. I mean, my children are my experiment. They've been on Poly-MVA since they were in utero, right? So, and they take Poly every day. I never started really taking Poly until I was in my 30s. And I've seen the difference it's made to me personally. And you see people like Michael Mascari, Gary Matson, hundreds, thousands, you yourself, and what you've experienced. And I say, you experience it, trust me. And I love the people that love to call me and go, you know, I tried Poly and it didn't do anything for me. I go, yeah, really? Okay, tell me how you did it. Let me, yeah. Yeah, it's like trying to, you know what, the paint on my car is fading. I'm just gonna go wash it and hope it comes back. No, you need a lot more work than just that. If that's what your expectations were. So it's been, daily, weekly, whether it's animals. So again, there's Poly Pet.
Yeah, let's talk about
makes a
Poly Pet.
difference. Yeah,
Let's talk,
Poly Pets,
you know, it's sad because more people spend more on their pets than they do on themselves. And you know, and that's fine, but we need to kind of like treat ourselves like we would treat our pets, you know, like lovingly. And but when it comes to the gentleman that you were talking about, did he have cancer, or he's just taking it for, because I thought he had cancer.
So he had a family history of, and again, I know he'd gone through, I don't remember the exact, he did have cancer. I don't remember exactly what time or where, or what story, but he just again, his supplements, his vitamin D, his CoQ10, his poly, that was part of his regimen for nutrition that said, no matter what, this is what I'm doing. Because he had learned through his experience and whatever brought him. Again, this is kind of before I really knew him from that perspective. Whether it was my dad and Gary and everybody else that just solidified this community that said, when you take care of those cells and do it that way, it like you mentioned with what Planck had said, right? When you change that point of view, it fundamentally changes the game. And that's and so Poly is often referred to as a game changer. Not because it's some special XY, but yes, because it's not, it's steeped in biology. Go read up on Dr. Garnett, read his story, understand what he was doing, and then you see what Poly, and you're like, okay, that's an easy connection. You mentioned, and you understand why technically it is relatively more expensive than some of the supplements. This isn't vitamin C you're going to go buy at GNC, or vitamin D you're going to go buy at Costco, right? It's just not that. Those things are very supportive and necessary. But that's not what this is. So yes, is it going to be more expensive, relatively speaking? Of course it is, because it doesn't exist anywhere except in that bottle. So it's fascinating from that perspective. And I'm excited, looking forward to meeting other doctors, continue our work together, because when you help people, that's the bottom line. You help people. I can tell you 6 ways to Sunday about Poly, but the physicians, you put that tool in their toolbox. Now they have a tool to really go help a lot of people. That's what it is at the end of the day. This isn't, as much as do we want to cure diabetes? Do we want to cure cancer? Do we want to cure? We don't want anybody to. I don't want it personally. I'd love for that to happen, but that is so esoterically just. It's a wonderful thing to do. We want peace on earth and all humanity never to fight and have any wars, but we got a lot of work to get there. I don't think it's not possible, but we have still a lot of work to do.
We do.
And okay, so let's just go do that work. Let's share it together. Let's like what I love about your show. Let's be a friend, I guess, because being an enemy is definitely not going to be helping things, no matter what circumstance it is. You may not like somebody, you may not like what they do, how they dress, but really at the end of the day, they're just another human being trying to put their pants on the same way, eat themselves, take care of their family all over this planet. Let's find a better way to do things. That's all.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, let's talk about pets, because you also use this with your animals. How would you use it with your animals?
So simply, like you touched on earlier, thank you for bringing me back around to that. What I love about pets, not only do I love pets because of that love and that bond you have with your pet, there's no placebo effect with animals. In humans, it can be upwards to close to 30%, as some of the studies have shown. So that's huge. And we'd studied it with animals very specifically, and we actually studied it blinded. In other words, the researchers did not know which animals were getting Poly, which ones were not getting the placebo. And in their questionnaires, they were 100% knowing that within 2 weeks of them taking Poly, which ones were taking Poly and which ones were not. Simply because how do you know when your animal's not doing well? Their eating is off. Their if or not they sleep, how they sleep, how they respond, their energetics, their demeanor. You know it immediately, right? Even in humans to a certain degree. When you're not feeling well, you can look at somebody and say, you're not feeling well. But animals, no placebo effect. And the researchers knew exactly within 2 weeks which ones were getting Poly, because their energy, their behavior, their activity, their nesting, all those things change. So that was a great study to look at that from with the veterinarians from there. So with animals, it's pretty simple. You just mix it in with their water, their food, and just let them go. It's that simple. It's so much easier because, again, they're going to take what you're going to give them, or they don't get to choose and have that placebo effect. So, and it's a whole lot less, right? And you're talking a 5-pound dog or even a 50-pound dog, far less than a 150 or 250-pound human.
Yeah.
And in that world, real quickly, we're so used to spending money on our pets. So you touched on that, and thank you for bringing that back around. It's like you mentioned, they're going to willingly spend money on their pets, but not themselves, because they're so used to getting, if they're thinking they have a serious condition, they're going to go to the doctor. And then you don't want to pay for medication. You don't want to pay for the doctor. Now it's just crazy expensive but with animals, they're always used to it. Always going to the vet, always having to pay for this. So paying for a bottle of Poly for your animals, like, okay, well, it'd be cheaper than going to the vet. So I'm saving money technically in certain situations.
Yeah.
But with ourselves, Yeah, it's different because we think about it differently.
Well, this has been, I'm glad we reconnected. I'm glad that I'm bringing Poly-MVA for those of you who are wanting to learn more. There's, you can, if you are a subscriber, then you already have the information. You have the link, you have everything, and you can try it for a percentage. I think it's 5% for, 5% off for a 4-ounce bottle and 10% off for an 8-ounce bottle of Poly-MVA. And it's for animals, pets, and humans, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And so you can click on the link below in the description for wherever you're watching, or you can just go to the blog at whenyouneedafriend.com and click on the link and it'll take you straight there. Final words, Al, about, if somebody just walked in and they just want to quickly know, what is Poly-MVA about? What would you say?
To quickly tell them about poly,
Just what's it about? Yeah.
it's about the mitochondria, metabolism, and improving one cell at a time. It's that simple.
It's that simple. And it tastes like that vitamin. It brings, every time I put it in my mouth, it brings me back to my childhood vitamins that my
There you go.
parents used. It's a black vitamin. I don't know if any of
Mhm.
you can remember that black vitamin and the smell and the taste. It just takes me there. But every time I use it and every time I do it, it's a comfortable feeling. It's a really comfortable feeling.
Nice.
And the fact that I was able to stop sneezing and wheezing after that, I did not need any more. But I know that dosing, we didn't even talk about dosing, but I'm sure that once somebody decides to buy it, they'll figure it out. And but do you have a team that will be able to help them as well answer any of these
Yeah,
questions?
we have
Yes.
guidelines and outlines. It's not the first time, so if there's any questions that they can't derive off the information that's on the website as well as on the bottle then again, it's just dosing from nutritional support from that perspective.
Yeah.
The more support you need, the more you take, and you can moderate that anytime. So similar to vitamin C, it could be at least, I think minimally, I think we need at least 1,000 milligrams a day. There's sometimes where you might need to be using 5,000,
I take
10,000.
10,000 a day. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
but again, is a lot of that is a good portion of that just going to be excreted out of your body? It is. But if your body needs it and it's not
Oh.
available, then you're in deficiency. So you've obviously, I'm assuming, made the choice to say, guess what? I'm going to spend that on that, regardless of what, knowingly that maybe my body won't use it all. And if it doesn't, that's okay. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
It's going to get excreted, and tomorrow, just like food, you're going to need it again. So that's a different way of thinking in what we have to do.
Yes. Well, thank you, Al. You're so wonderful. I'm glad that you took the time to be with us today. So thank you very much. And for those of you, if you want information, check out the description, the link in the description. You can also go to the blog, click on Poly-MVA, and start your journey and share with me what you think and what how you related to today's class. So thank you so much. And please remember, we'll be right here waiting for you worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. This is Lillian McDermott and Al Sanchez wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever. Good job.
The opinions and advice expressed on the Lillian McDermott radio show are intended for the individual callers and guests on the program and are presented to our wider audience solely for general educational purposes. Please act responsibly and consult personally with your own medical, psychological, or nutritional expert before